Kunja Vihare Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Lava Girivarada Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Nandana Braja Janaraja Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Tira Vanachare Yamuna Tira Vanachare Vanachare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Oh Bhattavrinda Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Oh Bhattavrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Radha, Radha, Damodara Radha, Jaya Lalita, Vishaka, Lalita, Vishaka, Shri Radhe, Lalita, Vishaka, Shri Radhe, Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Balade, Jayo Subhadra, Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Balade, Jayo Subhadra, Jayo Nitai, Gora Sundar Nitai, Gora Sundar Gaura Hari. Gora Sundar Nitai, Gora Sundar Gora, Jaya Nitai, Gora Sundar Nitai, Gora Sundar Gora Hari. Nitai Kora Sunda Kora Hari. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Gurudev, 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 Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Gurudev, Tango, Haribo, 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 Haribo. And we shall call upon the very great just to the rest of the Srimad. Divine grace of nature and bring the Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Chai Jagat Guru Param Guru Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Namacharya Brahmacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से केवल कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा दामोदर गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंज राधा कुंज गोदान की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवदेव धाम की जय अयोध्या धाम की जय नीलाचल जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्रीधाम मायपुर धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय यमुना माई की जय श्री गीता नागरी धाम की जय हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जाए Samavida Bhakta Vinda ki jai, Nitai Gora Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Lord of Shri Guru and Shri Goranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Canto 7, Chapter 6, text numbers 11 to 13. Thank you all for coming. Everyone is welcome to this Srimad Bhagavatam class. Ratam Priyaya Anuka Pitaya Sangam Rahashyam Ruchiramscha Mantrum Suhreshu Tat Sneha Sitaha Shishuram Karaksharanam Anun Rakta Sitaha Utransmaramsta Duhitri Hridaya Bratrin Swatriva Kitarocha Dino Grihan Mano Noru Parichadamscha Vritischa Kuya Pashu Bretya Vagan Tyajitas Kashas Krida Ivahamana Kamani Lopyat Avitri Kamaha Upatya Jamvyam Bahumanya Mana Katam Virajita Duranta Moha Yeah. Anyone wants to chant?
Ratam priyaya anukampitaya sangam rahasyam ruchiram shamantram suhrit sutat sneha sita shishunam kalaksharanam anurakta chitaha putran smaramsta du hit hridaya vratam svasir va patara jadi now grahan man no gyoru parich chadamscha pritishcha kurya pashubritya vargam Dyajeta koshas grid ive hamana kamani lobhad avitripta kamaha anupashya jaivam bahu manyam mana katam vajre yeta duranta mohaha.
Katam priyaya nukampitaya sangam rahasyam ruchiranscha mantran suhritsutat snehas sita shishnunam kalaksharanam arurakta chitta putran smarangsta tuhitri ridaya bratrin srish vapitarau chadinau grihan manogauru Parichangdangscha Vritischakulya Pashubhritya Vargan Tyajeta Koshaskrit Ive Hamana Karmani Lobha Davitripta Kamaha Aupastya Jivang Bahumanyamana Katam Virajeta Duranta Mohaha.
Which word translation? Tatam Priyaya of the dearest wife. Anukampitayaha, always affectionate and compassionate. Sangam, the association. Rahashyam, solitude. Ruchiran, very pleasing and acceptable. Cha and Mantran, instructions. Suhrishu, to the wife and children. Tat Sneha, Sita, being bound by their affection. Shusunam, to the small children. Kala Aksha, Ranam, speaking in broken language. Anurakta, Anurakta Chitaha, a person whose mind is attracted. Putran, the sons. Smaran, thinking of. Ta, them. Duhritri, the daughters, married and staying at the homes of their husbands. Hridaya, always situated in the core of the heart. Bratrim, the brothers. Swat, Va, or the sisters. Pitaro, father and mother. Cha, and do you know who in old age are mostly invalids? Grihan, household affairs. Manugyan, very attractive. Uru, much. Parichadan, furniture. Cha, and pretty big sources of income in industry, business. Cha, and Kuriaha, connected with the family. Pashu of animals, cows, elephants, and other household animals. Britya, servants and maid servants. Vagan, groups. Tyagita, can give up. Koshaha, create the silk well. Iva, like. Tamanaha, performing. Kamani, different activities. Lobat, because of insatiable desires. Avitripta, Kama, whose increasing desires are not satisfied. Upachya, pleasure from the genitals. Javyam, the tongue, Bahuma Manyamanaha, considering as very important. Katam, how? Varajita is able to give up. Durantamoha, being in great illusion. Translation and purport by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. How can a person who is most affectionate to his family, the core of his heart, being always filled with their pictures, give up their association? Specifically, a wife is always very kind and sympathetic and always pleases her husband in a solitary place. Who could give up the association of such a dear and affectionate wife? Small children talk in broken language, very pleasing to hear, and the affectionate father always thinks of their sweet words. How could he give up their association? One's elderly parents and one's sons and daughters are also very dear. Her daughter is especially dear to her father, and while living at her husband's house, she is always in his mind. Who could give up that association? Aside from this, in household affairs, there are many decorated items of household furniture, and there are also animals and servants. Who could give up such comforts? The attached householder is like a silkworm which weaves a cocoon in which it becomes imprisoned, unable to get out, simply for the satisfaction of two important senses, the genitals and the tongue. One is bound by material conditions. How can one escape? Report. In household affairs, the first attraction is the beautiful and pleasing wife, who increases household attraction more and more. One enjoys his wife with two prominent sense organs, namely the tongue and the genitals. The wife speaks very sweetly. This is certainly an attraction. Then she prepares very palatable food to satisfy the tongue. And when the tongue is satisfied, one gains strength in the other sense organs, especially the genitals. Thus, the wife gives pleasure in sexual intercourse. Household life means sex life. Yan matunadi grihamadi sukam he to charm. This is encouraged by the tongue. Then there are children. A baby gives pleasure by speaking sweet words in broken language. And when the sons and daughters are grown up, one becomes involved in their education and marriage. Then there are one's own father and mother to be taken care of. And one also becomes concerned with the social atmosphere and with pleasing his brothers and sisters. A man becomes increasingly entangled in household affairs, so much so that leaving them becomes almost impossible. Thus, the household becomes Graham Anda Kupon, a dark well into which the man has fallen. For such a man to get out is extremely difficult unless he is helped by a strong person, the spiritual master, who helps the fallen person with a strong rope of spiritual instructions. A fallen person should take advantage of this rope, and then the spiritual master or the supreme personality of God, Krishna, will take him out of the dark well. Om Gena Timiranda Shya Gena Jana Salakaya Chakshu Mlitam Yena Tasma Shri Namo. Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Nabhutali Swam Pakaram Mayandadati Swakaranti Kam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustati. Namaho Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Teta Swami Iti Namini. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmani Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Bhakti Teta Namini. Namaho Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gora Vani Pracharini Nevashisha Srinavadi Pashatyari Satarini. Vanchakapatarubyascha kripa sindhubhya ivacha patitanam pavanabhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gauravata Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So as we continue with these verses in Srimad Bhagavatam, this time to 7, and here now we are in chapter 6, we can understand how deeply material consciousness is very entangling. That, and especially in household life. Of course, when Prabhupada is speaking, we can understand, because in the purport, he actually made things very clear. Very clear. How is that? Because he's explaining in this verse. Because in the purport, we understand how Prabhupada says, how can a person who is most affectionate to his family, the core of his heart, being always fulfilled with their pictures, give up their association? Specifically, a wife is always very kind and sympathetic and always pleases her husband in a solitary place. Who could give up the association of such a dear and affectionate wife? So we understand, if you understand, we look at this, I mean, we scrutinize it properly, we understand that. I mean, when you are being when you are being pampered, everyone wants to be pampered. Everyone wants to be what? To be loved. So we understand that in household life, especially, actually, it's not only in household life, but today's test is we are limiting ourselves to the household life. If you have a wife who is always taking very good care of you, who is very affectionate to you, then automatically you develop attachment to that wife. And it's the other way around too. If a husband shows such a great affection to the wife and try to give whatever the wife needs, then automatically the wife will develop attachment. That this attachment can never be, overruled under no circumstances. It's there. But how are we going to be able to help ourselves to transform this type of attachment for our own benefit? And that's why, if you read The Spiritual Warrior 2 by His Holiness Bhattiteta Swami, he explains by describing how you can transform lust into love. How lust can be transformed into love. Similarly, by understanding that process, we can understand. We can also make a way to transform these attachments to the material elements into what? Being attached to the spiritual self. So if you have a family, if you are in a household life, and you are able to transform that attachment from out of the physical self, the material bodies, into the spiritual consciousness, then that attachment becomes a real good attachment. It becomes what? A stepping stone. It becomes a means of your own benefit. In other words, whatever we do, whether be it in the household life or whichever ashram that we are, as long as we become so much absorbed in the externals, then we cannot make a headway. But once we become absorbed in the internal, then it becomes a stepping stone for us. Of course, to train ourselves, it looks as if household life looks to be very difficult But at the same time, it is also a great opportunity for you to make a very much advancement in spiritual life. How is it that? How am I speaking like this? If you are given the opportunity in every situation in life, if you are given an opportunity to practice, there is a saying that practice makes perfect, right? Practice makes man perfect. So you must have something to practice with. And that's why when even you have kids, you have little children, we usually give them what we call toys, like dolls and all these things. What is the actual purpose? The actual purpose is it gives them the opportunity to train themselves. Like you bring these uh, toys, like the alphabets, the alphabetical toys, you give to a kid. What is the actual purpose of it? Is it only just to play with it? Yes, the child is supposed to play with it. But alongside playing with it, it also gives the child the opportunity to learn the alphabets, right? So, in other words, by constantly playing with that alphabetical toys, gradually there will come a time when the child will be able to master the whole alphabet. And this is going to help the child when the child begins school, because already the child has already been able to absorb him or herself in the alphabets. So it will help the child a lot. So somehow or the other, even though you're giving the toys to this child to play with, but at the same time, it's going to help the child. Similarly, in household life, you have been given children, you've been given a wife. And what is the ultimate thing in the spiritual realization? The ultimate thing is to have perfect association. So when you are in a family life, then you've been given the opportunity to train yourself right from your own home, how to develop, how to understand, and have the opportunity to exhibit this perfect relationship. Because without relationship, there's no existence. And that's why the impersonalists who wants to merge with God, they are said to be committing spiritual suicide. Because in Brahmajyoti, if you want to merge and become one with the Lord, then there's no association. But the true nature of the soul is what? It's association. And so if you are in a household, then you have been given the opportunity to learn how to properly interact, learn how to properly associate. And once you get the proper association like this, then you can easily make a headway. Because once you get that proper association right from the core of your household, then you can extend that association to your community. And from the community level, you improve on the association and you can extend it to what? The village, like that. And gradually it goes to the town, the city, the country. And globally, everyone becomes very good in associating with each other. Not for our personal interest, but for the interest of what? Of everybody. Because once you think selflessly, you associate in such a way that you don't think about your personal interests, but you think about the interests of the community as a whole. Then you make progress on the part of spiritual life. So even though there is the risk of you becoming so attached to family life to such an extent that it may distract you completely from the path of spiritual realization. But at the same time, because the risk is high, the advantage also is high. Everything that you do, if even you do business, the more risk you take in business, the higher the dividends. Because if you don't want to take risk, then you cannot make progress. So even though there's so much risk in household life, but at the same time, there is so much opportunity also to make progress on the path of spiritual life. And that's why whatever we do, we should learn how to what? model our way of thinking in such a way that we take proper advantage of the situation. Other than that, we may even decide to withdraw ourselves from the sense objects. Like Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, verse 6, that somebody can withdraw himself from the sense objects, but he will still be deliberating on it. And if we do that, Krishna says we are just pretenders and we deceive ourselves. So if you have the sense object in front of you, and you are able to interact with the sense object, but on a higher note, then it becomes advantageous for you to make very good progress. And that is why household life, even though it has some risk in it, but at the same time, it also has a great lot of advantages. And we can experience the advantages when we train ourselves to be in the proper consciousness. We don't see our children, we don't see our family as what? As our, what do we call it? As objects for us to enjoy. But we rather see them as what? As an opportunity that has been given us by the Lord to properly what? Interact with them to make progress on the part of our spiritual consciousness. Because if you don't have somebody to interact with, you may think yourself, oh yeah, I'm now very advanced. I have my mind under control. Now let someone comes and start insulting you. So let someone comes in your life and start disrespecting you. Then that is when you realize that you have not made any advancement at all. It's like someone who has never seen any beautiful lady before, and he's thinking, I'm a very powerful brahmachari. You've not seen anything to attract you, and you are thinking you are a very powerful brahmachari. Let a beautiful, spotless woman come by your way, and immediately you will forget that you are a brahmachari. So once you have not come into contact with the object of the senses, you can never pride yourself that you are in control of yourself. No. And that is why Krishna advises that we shouldn't be contemplating on the object of the senses, because the more we contemplate it for our selfish needs, then gradually we develop serious attachment to it. And from that attachment, lust develops. This is the process Krishna has said. That while we contemplate on the object of the senses for our personal enjoyment, gradually we develop attachment for it. From attachment, lust develops. And from lust, what? Bewilderment of memory, loss of intelligence, and then fall down. But if even we contemplate on the object of the senses, it should be contemplated on a higher note. Thinking, what is the purpose of this interaction that I'm having with these people? Well, my children, my wife, what is the opportunity that has been given to me? If you come to understand that I've been given the opportunity to properly interact with these people so that I can see them as a property that Krishna has entrusted me with, and that is my duty to take very good care of this property of the Lord. You don't see them as your property, but you see them as the property of the Lord. Then in that way, you properly interact with them and make progress. And Krishna will be very, very pleased with you because you are taking good care of his what? Of his devotees. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that there is nobody very dear to him. There's nobody as dear to him as the one who does what? Preaches his glories to who? To his devotees. So if you don't have his devotees to talk to, then how are you going to become very dear to the Lord? And who are that devotees? It starts right from your inner circle, your own family. So you talk to them, you talk to the devotees of the Lord. Once you see your family members as as devotees of Krishna, and you try to preach the glories of Krishna to these devotees, then gradually you are training yourself to come to the level where Krishna becomes very pleased with you, because you are what? you are preaching to his devotees. So we should see it in a very nice perception. I mean, we should see it in a way that being in a household life is a great opportunity that has been offered us to understand that these children, this my wife, my husband, my children, these are the children of Krishna who have been Krishna, that I should do my best to bring them back home, back to God. And in this way, we make a lot of progress, right? But if we become so attracted to their physical form and all we think about is to what? Is for our, to enjoy them for our personal pleasures, then that is where the problem comes. And in that way, even family life becomes very, very abominable, right? And that's why Jesus Christ was saying something in the 10th chapter of the book of Matthew, from the 34th verse. Even though Jesus is referred to as the Prince of Peace, right? But in Matthew chapter 10, from verse 34, he says, I did not bring peace in this world. I brought the sword. I came so that the daughter can rise against the mother. I came so that the father can rise, the son can rise against the father. He who loves mother and father more than me is not worthy to be my disciple. How can the Prince of Peace say that he brought sword, not peace? He was talking about attachment. If we become so grossly attached to family and children, then we cannot be his disciples. And we can practically realize anytime you want to take up devotional life, take up the worship of God, the very first people who will start criticizing you, who will start trying to dissuade you or persuade you from doing it, will be the inner core, your own family, the inner core. And if you submit to their desire to abstain from rendering service to the Lord, simply because you are so attached to their physical bodies, then there is a problem. And so we are so fortunate that we have been given the opportunity to come to this level of understanding, where we know that the ultimate thing is for us to see the members of our family as what? The property of Krishna. And that is our duty to train ourselves in such a way that we take very good care of the property of Krishna. Then we can make a head. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments or contributions? So we should understand. You have a question? Okay. Yeah. Take this thing so that people can hear you.
So I've heard two things that someone said that yeah, these interactions with our family, like they can train us to like train us in how to serve Krishna and how to have those relationships. And then, like, Prabhupada says I think at one point said, taking care of your baby is like deity worship. Like the mothers were like wanting to go on Sankirtan. And he was like, no, this is your deity worship, is taking care of your babies. But then sometimes also there's this devotion who I've heard like quoting Prabhupada saying that like just by taking care of your family isn't necessarily going to give you devotional service. The act of taking care of your family, that in and of itself isn't gonna breed bhakti. And then we hear these verses like, devotion should be towards Krishna, not towards any So I guess like I've heard those two sides, and I'm just like confused, like which one is right.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu, for this question. It actually is one of the things I mean, it's a very crucial thing uh, in our line of uh, devotion. And it's not only in Hare Krishna that we face the same situation. You go to every religious uh, sect, and they have the same problem. We have two ways people understand the world. Of course, when Prabhupada says that um, taking care of your children is like deity worship, yes, it is. Why is it not deity worship? Because if you are seeing the children as the property of Krishna, and that Krishna has entrusted them to you to take care of them, then in doing so, what are you doing? You are doing direct service to Krishna. Why is it that when even you are doing something, you are you are in the temple room and you pick up a character and the character falls down, what do? You pick it up and you touch it to your forehead. Why do you have to do that? Because if you are not seeing the character as any ordinary thing, but you are seeing it as Balaram, the expansion of the Lord, then you give that ultimate respect to the characters, right? If you see the book, Srimad Bhagavatam, lying idly on the floor, and you just abandon it, leave it like that, then it means you are not even recognizing the potency of that book. You are not seeing the book as what? As the manifestation of Krishna. But if you respect the book as being a manifestation of the Lord, and you take it, you touch it on your forehead, give the ultimate respect to that book, it's direct service to the Lord. And that is the mentality we should develop. And on the other side, the other question we were asking, that as a lot of devotees also speak, that Prabhupada says that if we become what we serve what do we call it, our children, it doesn't necessarily mean we are doing any service to the Lord. Of course, if you are not seeing them as the property of the Lord, but you are seeing them as your own property, then how can it be service to the Lord? Everything you do, even if you go to the other, Radha Damodara, if you see Radha Damodara with the consciousness that this is the Lord and I'm offering my services to him directly, then that becomes perfect service to the Lord, right? But if you go to the other and you don't see Radha Damodara as the manifestation of the Lord, as the Lord, but you are doing it as, oh, I'm supposed to dress the deity, so I'm doing my duty as dressing the deities. Huh? That is no service to the Lord. You get what I mean? So everything we do in our life mostly depends on what? Our perception, our consciousness. And if you do like that, then even though the object might not be physically in presence of you, you can still be worshiping Krishna. Like the story of the Brahmana who decided to cook sweet rice for the Lord. There was no physical rice in front of him. There was no physical water in front of him, nothing. But mentally, he was so absorbed in cooking the sweet rice for the Lord, right? And because he was so absorbed in cooking the sweet rice of the Lord, after cooking it mentally, he decided to touch it to see, right, whether it's hot or not. And what happened? He stretched the hand and he physically was bent. So everything we do in our path of devotional life, our state of consciousness is very important. Because if you don't see anything around us as the property of Krishna, and that we are supposed to take care of that, then we miss the point. We miss the point completely. Why is the scripture always telling us that Sadhu Sangha is the best way of making spiritual progress? Is it not true? The scripture tells us that when the association of devotees is the best way to make spiritual progress. So then, how then don't you see your children as devotees of the Lord, and that you are having a good association with them. So our state of mind should be that these children, this wife of mine, this husband of mine, is not my property, because you don't owe anything anyway. Do you owe anything? Even the body, the very body that you are holding, you don't owe your body. If you own your body, would you decide to die? If the body really belongs to you and you own the body, if the body is getting old, like, won't you stop it from getting old? But because you don't own it, somebody owns it. So that person who owns the body can decide to do whatever he likes with the body, right? And if you see it in that way of understanding, then you understand things in their real perspective. Other than that, we will be beating about the bush. Because our perception is very important in our part of devotional life. When you see everything as an opportunity that has been given you by the Lord to make progress, to use this thing as a service of the Lord to make progress. Because it doesn't belong to you. That thing doesn't belong to you, right? If you rent somebody's house, you live in somebody's house, does the property belongs to you? If you are a bank teller and you are counting so much money, does the money belong to you? So as long as you know that the money doesn't belong to you, can you misuse the money? You handle the money in such a way that the company, the bank, will appreciate the way you handle the money, right? And once they appreciate the way you have handled the money, what happens? They give you promotion. But if you are thinking that money belongs to you and you begin to misuse it for your own aggrandizement, then what happens? The bank will make sure they put you in jail. It's the same teller, it's the same money. Why is it that in one aspect they are putting you in jail, in the other aspect they are giving you promotion and giving you incentives? The way you handle it, your perception, the way you perceive it. The same thing applies to you and your family, your children, everything. If you are seeing them as the representatives of Krishna, that Krishna has given you this property to take very good care of them, then it becomes a deity worship. All right? But if you are seeing them as a source of your personal enjoyment, then it becomes something else. It becomes idol worship. He says we shouldn't worship demigod. Lord Shiva is considered to be a demigod, right? But the same scripture tells us that Lord Shiva is the Param Vaishnava. So how come? Why can't we worship a Param Vaishnava? We say worshiping the Vaishnavas is the best source. So if you approach Lord Shiva with the mentality of what? Seeing him as the Param Vaishnava, and that you are approaching him to help you advance on your path of what? Service to the Lord. Then that is the perfect way of approaching. But if you approach him for your personal aggrandizement, thinking, oh, I'm worshiping Lord Shiva so that he can give me some material boon, then that is where the problem begins. Because now you are putting yourself at the center of that worship. And that is very demonic. Does it make sense? Good. Because if we don't see the perception about things, like the popular example I always give, there is a biblical text, in Matthew chapter 19, from verse 16. Somebody approached Jesus and said, "Good master, how can I be saved?" And Jesus said, "Why do you call me good? There's nobody good except one, God above." And he said, if you want to be saved, follow the principles of Moses. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. And the guy said, oh, I think all these things I've been following all my life. What else do I need? And Jesus said, yes, for you to be perfect, Then go home, sell all your property, and give the proceeds to the poor, and then come and follow me. The guy went and never returned because he was very rich. Huh? And that thing Jesus said, the guy took it like literally. He was thinking that literally Jesus was telling him to just go and sell the thing and give the proceeds to the poor and then come and follow him. He took it literally. What he didn't understand that Jesus was telling him that don't see those properties as what? As your own. You have to learn how to detach yourself from it. So the guy was very miserable. He went and never returned. And Jesus turned and told his disciples, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to go to the kingdom of God. Huh? If you literally take this statement that Jesus made, then it's also something else, right? Because the eye of the needle, how big is the eye of the needle? And if he's saying that it will be easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to go to the kingdom of heaven, then it means that no rich man can ever go to the kingdom of heaven. Because how can you possibly put the camel to the eye of the needle? Huh? But what is the actual context of this statement? The actual context of this statement, he's not talking about the needle that we use to make garlands. That is not the type of needle Jesus was talking about. You can Google it and find out the eye of the needle in the Jewish architecture. When they say eye of the needle, what does it mean? In the Jewish architecture, when they say the eye of the needle, in every Jewish home that you go, they have a back door that comes to the house, apart from the front door. The front door is the normal size door, but the back door is a small door. So to go through that door, you have to actually bend to go through that door. And that door is what is referred to as the eye of the needle. And so Jesus was saying that for a camel to go through that eye of the needle, you see the size of a camel, tall, huge. So that the camel will have to actually squeeze itself to be able to go through the eye of the needle. And he says it's so difficult. It will even be easier for the camel to go through that eye of the needle than for what? Somebody who is materially attached, who has property and so attached to the property to go to the kingdom of heaven. You see how the context makes a lot of difference? So similarly, in the part of practicing devotional life, context. We should understand the context of the saying. Other than that, we always say things whimsical. We will whimsically be making some pronouncements that are not factual. So being very particular and learning how every statement that has been pronounced in the scripture, the contents of the statement, can help us make a lot of advancement on the part of the spiritual life. Any other questions? How many people we have? Okay, 7 people. Okay. Are there any more questions or contributions?
I was just wondering, I've experienced, I've also heard that there's this phrase that familiarity breeds contempt. And so I was wondering, at least for myself, I know there's sometimes that, I know people, even if they're very senior to me, just due to the constant listening, in a very casual way, that I sometimes it will get very annoyed with them or become like, oh, this person, they're not like a go here, like have a different mentality. So how do we always remind ourselves this is this is Krishna's property, this isn't mine?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. My last question was that she understands that familiarity breeds contempt. So you can be with someone for a long time and gradually you don't even see the value of the person. That is natural, right? In every aspect of our existence, it's natural. If you become so familiar with a situation, gradually you lose the, what do we call it? The purpose or the value of that thing. And you can experience it. If you go to the bathroom and the bathroom is very smelly, huh? If you stay there longer, the longer you stay there will come a time you cannot even smell the foul smell anymore because your nose becomes very used to the foul smell, isn't it? The first time you met devotees, when they are even like 500 meters away from you, you could smell some incense, some fragrance, right? But after being associating with them for a long time, you lose that fragrance scent. Because your nose becomes so familiar with the fragrance that you don't even perceive it anymore. All right? So similarly, when you associate with somebody for a long time, gradually, if you are not very careful, then you become so familiar with the person that you begin to lose the value of that person. And that's why even in relationship, when you are courting each other, when a boy and a girl are courting each other in the girlfriend boyfriend level, oh, so much love. Oh, uh, oh, I miss you so much. Because the boy is living in his house, you are living separately somewhere. So you are always loving separation. Huh? But immediately you come together after the wedding, everything, and you are living together. Yeah. Aribo, that's your problem. Please, can you pick this thing? And gradually you see you begin to, you become so familiar with the person that the awe and reverence that you used to have before gradually what? Diminishes. So it's natural. And that's why the scripture is telling us how we should learn the act of humility. Because once we are able to learn the act of humility, then the humility will always prompt us to see how precious what that personality is. And in this way, we can always relate to the person in a very loving mood. The humility is the only thing that can help us not to become so familiar with them, right? And Krishna knows that familiarity breeds contempt. And that is why in his dealing with the gopis and Mother Yashoda and everybody, Krishna intentionally makes Yoga Maya cover them. Yoga Maya covers them and makes them feel that they become so familiar with Krishna, right? So they don't see Krishna in the position of what? As God. Because once they see Krishna as God, then that relationship will not be as sweet as Krishna wants it. Huh? So similarly, Arjuna was so familiar with Krishna, he was not even seeing Krishna as a supreme person. Huh? Until Krishna showed him the universal form. Then immediately he became approaching with awe and reverence. So we should learn the art of humility. That is the only means by which we can what? Come to the level of what? Seeing the actual value of the person we are interacting with. Hmm? And how do we cultivate humility? Prabhupada has given us chanting the holy names of the Lord. It's very important. It gradually gives us the act of humility. And Lord Chaitanya is saying, if even you are able to cultivate that humility, then it will be even easier for you to continuously chant the holy names of the Lord because you see the actual potency of the names of the Lord. All right? Yeah. Time is up. Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to their Lordship, Shri Shri Radha Damodara, Alita Vishaka, Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra, Shri Shri Gora, Nita Gora Sindra Ki Jai. Govinda. Govinda. Hare Puja.